now I really want to get into some of the tools that the USDA has, and that really is the food buying guide. I'm going to take you through the food buying guide and the recipe analysis tool, and ICN has some really great information on these topics. They have like 4 to 6 hour videos that you can go through, and I'm really not going to do that. I learned by kind of doing, and so this is what I've done. Here's a couple things that I find helpful, and I'm hoping as I show it to you that it'll also be helpful to you. So let's go to that. So this is the USDA's online page of the food buying guide. Now the food buying guide has a couple different versions. You can do one that is an app, and then you can also do this one that is online. I've used the app a lot and used the food buying guide calculator when maybe I'm trying to figure out how much of a product I need to order, or how much, if I want 100 servings of potatoes in a building, how many pounds is that? Those are quick things that I've used before on the app. But for the most part, I'll do it on the online version. So for this to be really effective, you do have to set up an account, and I've logged in on it. Once you have set up an account, it will save things for you. Also, if you go in as a guest, you can't use the recipe analysis workbook. So we're going to talk about the food buying guide and then the recipe analysis workbook. So this is the home page, and we're going to jump to the food buying guide. And as you can see here, it has our shopping list. These are the different things that I've done in the past. And what I'm going to do is we have a sweet carrot and apple recipe. And I want to have 100 servings of that I'm going to do for a building, so I want to know how much I'm going to order. So I am going to create a shopping list. And what is helpful a little bit when you have this is they have these numbers here, and it kind of runs you through the steps that you're going to take. It's not perfect, but I find it somewhat helpful. And so we are going to call this carrot and apple take 2. We are going to pick a date. It does allow you to select different programs. So if you have a CACFP program, you can do that, or if you have different ones. And then you can see, once we've gone through the 1, 2, we have here, and we have tabs across the top. And so these are the components of a meal. And so I don't have any meat or meat alternatives, but I do have a vegetable. And so when I do select vegetables, it gives me what the requirements are for the National School Lunch Program, if I needed that. And step 3 is to find the keyword. So we're going to select carrots. So we have carrots and apples, and I'm looking for 100 servings. And so once I hit carrots, I go search. Now this is similar in most of the stuff that you get in the food buying guide. It'll talk about the food as purchased, the purchase units, and then also the contribution. So the food as purchased is how this comes in your door. So we have carrots, they're coming in without tops. And that helps it so it's balancing what the yields are going to be. The purchase unit is also really important because this is how you're going to put in how much you're going to have. So if you're doing a recipe, you have to convert it to pounds if you're going to do this. And then the serving size per contribution, what this really talks about is it talks about how is that food going to be served. And so obviously that would make a difference if you have a raw vegetable or you have a cooked vegetable. And so our carrots, when we serve it, they will be a cooked vegetable. And so I'm going to look for what we can have. I'm going to look for what we have as a cooked vegetable, and I'm going to try to find, there it is, cooked, drained, sliced vegetable. And so I'm going to add that. And so we've done number 3, and now it's down here, and it talks about on hand. So if you were really using this functionally in a site and you have 10 pounds of carrots on hand, you could put that in there. But we're not, so we're going to go on to number 6, which is adding a serving size. And so we have carrots and apples. We're going to want a 1/4 cup of each to make a 1/2 cup serving that we want to have. And so I'm going to go a 1/4 cup, and I'm going to say I want 100 servings. And so once I have that, then I'm going to save it. And so what is done here is given us the exact quantity that we would need, 12 1/4 pounds. But if you're buying it, it'll say, well, probably 12 1/2 pounds. All right, and so we've done carrots now. And now we're going to go on to fruits. So once again, I'm going to go to apples. And it really doesn't have different variety of apples or all those type of things, because when it comes to yield, they're all pretty much the same. So what I am looking for, these apples are a peeled apple, they're fresh, and they're raw. And so we have raw cored peeled fruit. And so we're going to add that. Then we'll keep going down where it puts it in there. Once again, we have none on hand, and we are going to add our serving size. 1/4 cup, 100 servings. And then we are going to save. And so what this has done, this has given us that we need about 9 pounds of apples, and then what was on carrots. And so you could go, depending on what your recipe is or what you're working with, you could go with all the different components that you were going to do. And then you get to the end and it gives you a shopping list. And so this is what I need to purchase. I need to purchase 12.5 pounds of carrots and 9 pounds of apples. And this would also be helpful if you have a central location and you're sending out to a site and you're figuring out how much you want to do. So that is where I've found this helpful. Now I want to look at the recipe analysis workbook. One thing to say about this, what this does is it helps you analyze your components. So it really isn't like a recipe program where you're handing a recipe to your staff, or it doesn't do nutritionals. What it really does is it just gives you your components. And personally, I don't have a really robust nutrition software program that might be able to do it. So this you might want to use if you're doing something for an audit, or you really want to make sure you have something straight when you're doing it. And I found it helpful in a couple occasions, and so I want to share what I've done with it. So once again, you can go through and you can save your different recipes that you have, and you have different information on there, and do it. And once again, we're going to continue on with our sweet carrot and apple recipe. And so I'm going to create a recipe. Similar, has the numbers that you follow along, kind of looks in the same format. We are going to do 50 servings in this recipe. We're going to give it a recipe number. Our serving size is going to be a 1/2 cup. If you wanted to organize these in different folders, you could. I have not done that. What's a little bit different about the recipe analysis workbook is it has you go through and you select all the credible ingredients. And I think a key word in there is credible ingredients. So if I have a recipe that maybe has brown sugar in it, that's not going to show up because it's not a credible ingredient. We're not looking to build a full recipe. We're looking to see which the ingredients are. Once again, I'll choose National School Lunch as my program. And I like to select the different components as we go through, because then that narrows it down and you don't get as much clutter. And so we're going to start with vegetables, and we're going to look at carrots. And so here are the search results down below. Once again, what we're talking about, it says your meal category, what the subcategory is. Here's your as purchase. This is what it is coming in the door. Here's your purchase unit. This is how they quantify it. And then this is really how it ends up on the table for the student. And so we're going to go, again, we're going to choose the cooked, drained, sliced vegetable. And so we're going to add that in. At this point, we're not adding in any other how much of it or anything like that, but we're doing it. And as you can see with this recipe, the things that are components are carrots, apples. There is buttermilk, but I'm not going to include it because it's not going to be enough, but there is some apple juice. And so we're going to include that in it. All right, so we have the carrots. And so now we want to go on and we want to do the apples. And so I'm going to type in apples, and nothing showed up. Nothing showed up because I don't have fruit as the meal component. So once I do fruit as the meal component and do apples, and this is the results that I get, and I go through and I am looking for raw cored peeled apples, and I'm adding those. The other thing that we had in here was apple juice. And so if I type in apple juice under fruits, and it gives me these choices. And the one thing that's different, most juices are the same as far as components go, but it comes in different sizes. So I am going to choose 32 fluid ounces because that's what we use in our program. And so I'm going to add that. And so now we have, these are our credible ingredients that we have. And so if we flow along the tabs, it asks for recipe notes. This isn't something I've used before. I wouldn't know where it fit. And then we go to vegetables. And so this is when you're putting in how much is it part of your recipe. And so as you can see in our recipe, the quantity that we're going to use is we're going to use 7 pounds. And I got that by using the food buying guide calculator to figure that out. And so I'm going to do 7 pounds is the quantity of the agreement. And now I'm going to go with fruits. And then for the apples, we need 4 pounds. And so I'm going to enter in the 4 pounds. And then this is the part that might get tricky on you. So apple juice, I need 12 ounces. But my servings, my purchase units is a quart, and so that's 32 ounces. I need to make sure I convert it into that purchase unit, or this isn't going to work for you. 32 divided by 12 is 0.375, and so I'm going to put this in as 0.4. And so that will give me the quantity. And so in this recipe, I don't have any meats, I don't have any grains, or any other thing that we're doing. And so once I've done this and I've saved it, and it's thinking as it saves, then this is where the payoff is for me. So this is my meal contribution. So I know if I have this recipe and my staff are serving a half cup, that it's getting a 1/4 cup of vegetables and a 1/4 cup of fruit. This would be accepted by a USDA audit. It'd be accepted as you're doing your different things. And so I've found that very helpful. Now let's go back to the list. And because really where I've used this before is with a complicated recipe. And so let me show you our roasted chicken taco salad. Now the roasted chicken taco salad has a bunch of different ingredients in it. It has rice, it has chicken, it has frozen corn, shredded carrots, black beans, green peppers, red peppers, shredded cheese, and tortillas. It's a variety of different things that go into it. And I really wanted to find out, what is the exact meal components of it. And so I went through, and this first recipe that I have, I went through and I entered all the ingredients. And so we went through and we entered the cheese, and we entered the chicken and the vegetables and the beans and the rice, all those different ingredients that we added. And then we put the quantities in of the meat alternatives, the different grain methods that we do for tortillas. And I would just like to say that I'm not going to explain the grain methods because they're complicated, and you would probably need to do that deep dive with ICN to figure it out. And then we come down to the end, and so here's our meal contribution. Well, it has 2.5 grains and 2 ounces of protein, which is great for a school meal, but it's got a 1/4 cup of vegetable. And if I could get that with all the different vegetables, and I could get that so that's a 1/2 cup, then that would mean if they take that main entree, that they, in offer versus serve, that they have a meal. And that you could ask them if they want to take a fruit or a milk. But this could be offered as a complete meal. And that really is a benefit to me. And so I took a look at it, and I think this is really one of the areas where this becomes a valuable tool, is I took a look at it, And I said, okay, what if I make some changes? And so if I show you this new recipe and I said, you know what? I'm going to go from 2 pounds of frozen corn to 3 pounds of frozen corn. Instead of a half number 10 tin of black beans, I'm going to go to a full can of black beans. I'm going to do more green peppers and a little bit more shredded cheese. And then that's going to make up my components. And so once I've made all those changes, and so this is my take 2. And so once I've made those changes with the different things where I increase the amounts that we have of the fruits and vegetables and the cheese, this is now my meal components, where I have a 1/4 cup of vegetables, I have an 1/8 cup of beans, 1/8 cup of starchy vegetables, so that gives me my 1/2 cup along with the grains and the proteins. And so that, for me, really makes it a win, where a lot of times when I have small vegetables or small things in a recipe, I might just say, well, they just don't count them and I have to make sure I have the other things, but I can do that. So I really feel that these are the things that are valuable with this. I'm sure there's other things that you can do with all these resources, but I found those to be really helpful, and I might not use them on a daily basis, but on a monthly basis, I probably use either the food buying guide or the recipe analysis workbook.